Everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to part three. And I have a stomach ache. I think I've been drinking a lot of sparkling water. I feel like maybe I've had one too many today. I'm in pain because I didn't have much to eat, but that could also be it too. So I can't tell. I trimmed my mustache and I don't know if it's even, but let's just get into it. Maybe we just need to talk and this stomach ache will go away. Like I'm really debating cracking open this other one just to see if it helps, but I think I should refrain. Might just have to grab an Advil. Oh. All right, let's just rock and roll. Roll. Okay, that was 30 hours. Hey, yeah. Okay. Okay, Alex. A big pressure tube of oxygen was lashed to a deck rail, its gauges and valves wrapped in canvas. Gradually, the boat was loaded and the materials put away, some never to be taken out again. It was agreed that we should all stand wheel watch when we were running night and day, but once in the Gulf and working at collection stations, the hired crew should work the boat, since we would anchor at night and run only during the daytime. Toward the end of the preparation, a small hysteria began to build around ourselves and our friends. There were hundreds of unnecessary trips back and forth. Some materials were stowed on board with such cleverness that we never found them again. Now the whole town of Monterey was becoming fevered and festive, but not because of our going. At the end of the sardine season, canneries and boat owners provide a celebration. There is a huge barbecue at the end of the pier with free beef and beer and salad for all comers. The sardine fleet is decorated with streamers uh, bunt and bunting and serpentine. And the boat, with the biggest season catch, is queen of a strange nautical parade of boats, and every boat is an open house, receiving friends of owners and of crew. Wine flows beautifully, and the parade of boats that starts with dignity and precision sometimes ends in turmoil. This fiesta took place on Sunday, and we were to sail on Monday morning. The western flyer was decorated with the rest of the red and blue bunting and serpentine. Master and crew refused to sail before the fiesta was over. We rode in the parade of boats, some of us in our crow's nests and some of us in the house. With 5,000 other people, we crowded on the pier and ate great hunks of meat, drank beer, and heard speeches. It was the biggest barbecue the sardine men had ever been given, and the potato salad was served out in wash tubs. The speeches rose to a crescendo of patriotism and good feeling beyond anything Monterey had ever heard. There should be here some mention of the permits obtained from the Mexican government. At the time our preparation, Mexico was getting ready for the presidential election, and apparent issues were so complex as to cause apprehension that there might be violence. The nation was a little nervous, and it seemed to us that we should be armed with permits which clearly established us as men without politics or business interest. The work we intended to do might well have seemed suspicious to some patriotic customs official or soldier. Ooh, I just thought, oh my God, some freaking tortilla chips and salsa would be so bust right now. Oh God. I could do it. A small boat that crept to uninhabited, oh my gosh, look at me yawning at 9:45. Whew. A small boat that crept to uninhabited rocks, uninhabited points on barren coast, and a party which spent its time turning over rocks. It's suspicious, and yeah. Sorry, I cut there right in the middle of a sentence. It was not likely that we could explain our job to the satisfaction of a soldier. It would seem ridiculous to the military mind to travel 1,500 miles for the purpose of turning over rocks on seashore and picking up small animals, very few of which were edible, and doing all this without shooting at anyone. Besides, our equipment might have looked subversive to one who had seen war sections of life and pick and look. We carried no firearms except a 22 caliber pistol and a very rusty 10 gauge shotgun, but an oxygen cylinder might look too much like a torpedo or an excitable rural soldier. And some of the laboratory equipment could have had a lethal look to it. We were not afraid of ourselves, but we imagined being held in some mud cartel while the good low tides went on and we missed them. In our naivete, we considered that our State Department, having much business with the Mexican government, might include a paragraph about us in one of its letters, which would convince Mexico of our decent intentions. To this end, we wrote to the State Department explaining our project and giving a list of people who would confirm the purity of our motives. Then we waited with childlike faith that when a thing is stated simply and evidence of its truth is included, there need be no mix-up. Besides, we told ourselves as American citizens, and the government was our servant. Alas, we did not know diplomatic procedure. In due course, we had an answer from the State Department. In language so diplomatic as to be barely intelligible, it gently disabused us. In the first place, the State Department was not our servant. However other departments might feel about it. The State Department had little or no interest in the collection of marine invertebrates unless carried out by the Institution of Learning, preferably by Dr. Butler as its president. The government never made such representations for private citizens. Lastly, the department hoped to God we would not get into trouble and appeal it for aid. All this was concealed in language so beautiful and incomprehensible that we began to understand why diplomats say they are studying a message from Japan, England, or Italy. We studied this letter for the better part of one night, reduced its sentences to words, built it up again, and came out with the above mentioned gist. Gist is, we imagine, a word which makes the State Department shudder with its vulgarity. There we were with no permits, and the imaginary soldiers should still be upset about our oxygen tube. In Mexico, certain good friends worked to get us permits. The consul general in San Francisco wrote letters about us, and then finally, through a friend, we got in touch with Mr. Castillo Najera, the Mexican ambassador to Washington. To our wonder, there came an immediate reply from the ambassador, which said that there was no reason why we should not go, and he would see the permits were issued immediately. His letter said just that. There was a little sadness in us. We read it. The ambassador seemed such a good man. We felt it a pity that we had no diplomatic future, that we could never get anywhere in the world of international politics. We understood his letter the first time we read it. Clearly, Mr. Castillo is a misfit and a rebel. He is not quickly. Wait. He not only wrote clearly, but he kept his word. The permits came through quickly and in order. And we wish here and now to assure this gentleman that whatever the inevitable punishment for his logic and clarity falls upon him, we will gladly help him get a new start in some other profession. Maybe I'll eat some carrots or something. Oh, quesadilla sounds really yummy. Ooh, some of that salsa. Ooh, golly. Ooh, gosh. But I need an Advil. Oy, oy, oy. Oy, oy, oy. I kind of want to go on a walk, too. I'm going to read from here. I hope you don't mind the close-up. The, 140p close-up of my mirrored face. God. Wow. All right. That's fine. Um, when the permits arrived, they were beautifully sealed so that even a soldier who could not read know that if we were not what we were at least influential enough spies and saboteurs to be out of his jurisdiction. And so our boat was loaded, except for a few fuel tanks, which we planned to fill in San Diego. Our crew entered the contest at the Sardine Fiesta, the skiff race, the grease pole walk, and the water barrel tilt. Ooh, the grease pole walk sounds pretty fun. And they did not win anything, but no one cared. And late into the night, when the feast had died, we slept ashore for the last time, and our dreams were cluttered with things we might have forgotten. And the beer cans from the fiesta washed up and down the shore on the little brushing waves behind the breakwater. We had planned to sail about 10 o'clock on March 11th. Oh man, a day after a once very important date, not so much. But so many people came to see us off, and the leave taking was so pleasant that it was afternoon before we could think of going. The moment or hour of leave taking is one of the pleasantest times in human experience, for it has in it a warm sadness without loss. People who don't ordinarily like you very well are overcome with affection at leave taking. We said goodbye again and could still not bring ourselves to cast off the lines and start the engine. It would be good to live in a perpetual state of leave taking, never to go nor to stay, but to remain suspended in the golden emotion of love and longing. Damn, this is why I love Steinbeck. How beautiful one is, and how desirable, for in a few moments one will have ceased to exist. Wives and fiancés were there, melting and open. How beautiful they were too. And against the hull of the boat, the beer cans from the fiesta yesterday tapped lightly into the little bells, and the seagulls flew around and around, but did not land. There was no room for them. Too many people were seeing us off. Even a few strangers were caught in the magic and came aboard and wrung our hands and went into the gallery. If our medicine chest had held out, we might truly have never sailed. But about 12:30, the last dose was prescribed and poured and taken. Only then did we realize that not only were we fortified against illness, but that 50 or 60 inhabitants of Monterey could look forward to a long period of good health. So they drank a lot of hard liquor. Oh, wow, I'm feeling miserable right now. Lord. I feel like I had an anti-acid recently. That really helped. Oh, my housemate gave me one a couple weeks ago. The day of charter had arrived. The instrument said we would leave on the 11th, and the master was an honest man. We ejected our guest, some forcibly. The lines were cast off. We backed and turned and wove our way out among the boats of the fishing fleet. In our rigging, the streamers, the bunting, and the serpentine still fluttered, and as the breakwater was cleared and the wind struck us, we seemed to ourselves at least a very brave and beautiful sight. The little bell buoy on the reef of the Cabrillo Point was excited about it too, for the wind had freshened and the float rolled heavily, and the floor clappers struck the bell with a quick tempo. We stood on top of the deckhouse and watched the town of the Pacific Grove slip by and dark pine-covered hills roll back on themselves as though they moved, not we. That's super cool. We sat on a crate of oranges and thought what good men most biologists are, the tenors of the scientific world, temperamental, moody, lecherous, loud, laughing, and healthy. Once in a while, one comes on the other kind, what used in university to be called a dry ball, but such men are not really biologists. They are the embalmers of the field, the picklers who see only the preserved form of life without its any principle. Out of their own crusted minds, they create a world wrinkled with formaldehyde. The true biologist deals with life, with teeming, boisterous life, and learns something from it, learns the first rules, learns that the first rule of life is living. The dry balls cannot possibly learn anything from a starfish, can learn everything a starfish knows in the core of his soul and in the vesicles between his rays. He must so know the starfish and the student biologist who sits at the feet of the living things proliferate in all directions, having certain tendencies as he must move along their lines to limit the potentialities. And we have known biologists who did proliferate in all directions. One or two have had a little trouble about it. Your true biologist will know that morals are often of diagnostic of protistus and stomach ulcers. Sometimes he may even proliferate a little too much in all directions, but he is an easy kill as any other organism. And meanwhile, he is a very good company, and at least he does not confuse a low hormone productivity with its moral ethics. The Western Flyer pushed through the swells toward Point Joe, which is the southern tip of the Bay of Monterey. There was a line of white which marked the open sea, for a strong north wind had been blowing on the reef, whistling the Bowie on the reef, the whistling Bowie rode, roaring like a perplexed and mournful bull. On the shore road, we could see the cars of our recent friends driving along, keeping pace with us while they waved handkerchiefs sentimentally. We were all a little sentimental that day. We turned the buoy and cleared the reef. As we did, the boat rolled heavily and then straightened. The north wind drove down on our tail, and we headed south, with the big swells growing under us and passing, so that we seemed to be standing still. A squadron of pelicans crossed our bow, flying low to the waves and acting like a train of pelicans tied together, activated by one nervous system, for they flapped their powerful wings in unison, coasted in unison. It seemed that they tipped a wave top with their wings now and then, and certainly they flew in troughs of the waves to save themselves from the wind. They did not look around or change direction. Pelicans seem always to know exactly where they are going. A curious sea lion came out to look over us, a tawny, crusty old fellow with rakish mustache and the scars of battle on his shoulders. He crossed our bow too, and turned and paralleled our course, trod water, and looked at us. Then, satisfied, he snorted and cut for the shore and some sea lion appointment. They always have them. It's just a matter of getting around to keeping them. Boy, 30 hours. I was in you can see me. I'm enough for the fee. What do you do? Oh my god, wow. Can't believe this. I'm just so freaking my stomach hurts. Advil for sure, incoming in like 10 minutes. And now the wind grew stronger. The windows of houses along the shore flashed in the declining sun. The forward gray wire of our mast began to sing under the wind, a deep and yet penetrating tone, like the lowest string of an incredible bull fiddle. We rose on each swell and skidded on it until it passed and dropped us in the trough. And from the galley ventilator came the odor of boiling coffee, a smell that never left the boat again while we were on it. In the evening, we came back restlessly to the top of the deck house, and we discussed the old man of the sea, who might well be a myth, except that too many people have seen him. There is some quality in man that makes him people the ocean with monsters, and one wonders whether they are there or not. In the sense, in one, sorry, that I saw a bug. In one sense, they are, for we continue to see them. One afternoon in the laboratory ashore, we sat drinking coffee and talking with Jimmy Costello, who is a reporter on the Monterey Herald. The telephone rang, and his city editor said that the decomposed body of a sea serpent was washed up on the beach of Moss Landing, halfway around the bay. Jimmy was to rush over and get pictures of it. He rushed, approached the evil-smelling monster from which the flesh was dropping. There was a note pinned to its head which said, "Don't worry about it. It's a basking shark," signed Dr. Rolf Bolin of Hopkins Marine Station. No doubt that what shadow is casting? No doubt that Dr. Bolin acted kindly, for he loves true things, but his kindness was a blow to the people of Monterey. They so wanted it to be a sea serpent. Even we hoped it would be. And sometimes a true sea serpent collected and undecayed is found or caught, a shout of triumphs will go through the world. There, you see, men will say, I knew they were there all this time. I just had a feeling they were. Men really need sea monsters in their personal oceans, and an old man of the sea is one of these. In Monterey, you can find many people who have seen him. Tiny Costello has seen him close up and drawn a crabbed sketch of him. He's very large. He stands up in the water, 3 feet tall, emerged above the waves, and watches an approaching boat until it comes too close, and then he sinks slowly out of sight. He looks somewhat like a tremendous diver with large eyes, fur shaggily hanging around him. So far, he has not been photographed. When he is, Dr. Bolin will identify him as and another beautiful story will be shattered. For this reason, we rather hope he is never photographed. For if the old man of the sea should turn out to be some great malformed sea lion, a lot of people will feel a sharp personal lost. A Santa Claus lost. Hold on, I kind of want to look at the old man of the sea, see if there's any old art of it. See, yeah, old man of the sea. Monterey. Let's see. Old man of the sea refers to Bobo, a legendary cryptid or sea monster that is frequently reported by fishermen in Monterey Bay during the mid-20th century. Very cool. Whoa. I'm going to look up art. So nothing really, but still pretty cool. I'm always been a fan of like folklore and stuff. I have some books around here of Greek mythology that I really need to break into and learn. That's cool. There are footnotes here. It's kind of interesting to have a footnote in a fictional book, unless this wasn't actually a fictional book and Mark Twain and actually John Steinbeck went on this expedition. Oh shoot. Oh, he actually did go. So this is a true story. Wow. That's cool. I thought this was a story. That's cool. And the ocean would be none the better for it if we, found out the old man at the sea wasn't real. For the ocean, deep and black in the depths, is like the low, dark levels of our minds in which the dreams, symbols incubate and sometimes rise up to the sight, like the old man of the sea. And even if the symbol vision be horrible, It is there, and it is ours. An ocean without its unnamed monsters would be like a completely dreamless sleep. Sparky and Tiny do not question the old man of the sea, for they have looked at him. Nor do we question him because we know he is there. We would accept the testimony of these boys sufficiently to send a man to his death for murder, and we know they saw this monster and that they described him as they saw him. We often we have thought often of this mass of sea memory or sea thought which lives deep in the mind. If one asks for a description of the unconscious, even the answer symbol will usually be in terms of dark water into which the light descends only a short distance. And we have thought how the human fetus has, at one stage of its development, vestigial gill slits. In the gills are the component of the human development. It is not unreasonable to suppose a parallel or concurrent mind or psyche development. If there be life memory strong enough to leave its symbol in vestigial gills, the uh, prepon- prepondent, preponderanty aquatic symbols, preponderanty aquatic symbols in the individual unconscious might well be indications of the group psyche memory, which is the foundation of the whole unconscious. And what things must be there? What monsters? What enemies? What fear of the dark and pressure and of prey? There are numbers of examples wherein even invertebrates seem to remember and to react to stimuli no longer violent enough to cause the reaction. Perhaps next to that of the sea, the strongest memory in us is that of the moon. But the moon and sea tide and the tide are one. Even now, the tide establishes a measurable, although minute, weight differential. For example, the steamship Majestic loses about 15 pounds of its weight under the moon. Is that true? Ooh. According to a theory by George Darwin, the son of Charles Darwin, in pre-Caribbean times, more than 1,000 million years ago, the tides were tremendous, and the weight differential would have been correspondingly large. The moon pull must have been the most important single environmental factors for littoral animals. Oh, and we learned that littoral means things that are on the shore or things that are, yeah, on the shore. Displacement in the body weight then must certainly have decreased and increased tremendously with the rotation phases of the moon. God, I'm getting like overheated. Particularly if the orbit was at that time elliptic. The sun's reinforcement was probably slighter relatively. Consider then the effect of the decrease in pressure on gonads, turgid with eggs or sperm, already almost bursting and awaiting the slight extra pull to discharge. Now, if we admit for the moment the potency of this tidal effect, we have only to add the concept of inherited psychic pattern we all call instinct to get an inkling of the force of the lunar rhythm, so deeply rooted in marine animals and even in higher animals and in man. When the fishermen find the old man rising in the pathways of their boat, they may be experiencing reality of past and present. This may not be a hallucination. In fact, it is little likely that it is. The interrelations are too delicate and too complicated. Tidal effects are mysterious and dark in the soul, and it may well be noted that even today the effects of the tides is more valid and strong and widespread than is generally supposed. For instance, it has been reported that radio reception is related to the rise and fall of Lador tides. Wow. So that's why there are footnotes. And there may be a relation between tidal rhythms and recently observed fluctuations in the speed of light. One could safely predict that all psychological processes corresponding might be shown to be influenced by the tides. Could we but read the indices with sufficient delicacy? It appears that the physical evidence of this theory that George Darwin is more or less hypothetical, not in fact, but by interpretation and the critical reasoning, could conceivably throw out the whole process and with it the biological connections because of unknown links and factors. Perhaps it should be read the other way around. The animals themselves would seem to offer a striking confirmation to the tidal theory of cosmology. Of one is almost forced to postulate some such theory if we would account casually for this. Primitive impress. It would seem far-fetched to attribute the strong lunar effects actually observable in breeding animals to present fairly weak tidal forces or to coincidence. There is tied up to the most primitive and powerful racial or collective instinct, a rhythm sense or memory, which affects everything and which in the past was probably more potent than it is now. It would at least be more plausible to attribute these profound effects to devastating and instinct-searing tidal influences active during the formative times of early race history of organisms, and whether or not any mechanism has been originally discovered or is discoverable to carry on this imprint through the germplasms, the fact remains that the imprint is there. The imprint is in us, and is in Sparky, and is in the ship's master, in the polyworm, the muscle worms, the chitons, and the menstrual cycle of women. The imprint lies heavily on our dreams and on the delicate threads of our nerves, and if this seems to come a long way from the sea serpents and the old man of the sea, actually it does not come far from it at all. The harvest of symbols in our minds seem to have been planted in the soft, rich soil of our pre-humanity. Symbol, the serpent, the sea, the moon might well be the only single light that the psychophysiological rap exists. Well put, John. Well put. I'm going to stop it right there, actually, and I'm going to go downstairs and grab some Advil and maybe make a quesadilla. Thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, we'll see you soon for the next stream. Thank you.